Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Play On podcast. This is a hurling edition and it's a special edition. For the first time ever, me and Luke are going to preview an All-Ireland final. This is an All-Ireland Hurling Final between Cork and Limerick. Not the pair that I would have put in the All-Ireland Hurling Final. I thought Kilkenny were going to win the semi-final. Luke, that's 1 point in favour of you. You predicted Cork were going to win the semi-final. Cork and Limerick were playing each other in the Munster Semi Final back at the start of the championship, and this was by far the game that you were looking forward to the most at the start of the championship, and it kind of failed to deliver a little bit. Limerick just kind of got the job done. Do you think this game is going to deliver in the way that one didn't?
Yeah, well, kind of looking back at that game, it was a funny old kind of game. Like you have all the factors that Cork really did a really good job in Limerick. I thought for the first 50 minutes of that game, they were right in that game, and they had as well. Patrick Horgan missed a penalty as well, and there was a few big kind of moments that kind of went against them. I suppose it was only kind of in the last 10 or 5 minutes maybe, that Limerick kind of just started slotting scores, and they kind of made I think it finished up with 8 between the sides, but it wasn't an 8-point game. So it was a funny one to watch. And I do think this Cork team has come on leaps and bounds since then. I think the level of confidence is through the roof at the moment. They've kind of made a few changes. They found a fullback in Robert Downey there now. They found a wing back if he's fit in Jared Miller. There's been a fair few changes since that game, and I think I would expect Cork to put up a really good showing against Limerick, but I am still thinking that maybe this is a year too soon for Cork. I like where Cork are going at the moment. I think they're getting better every single time they play with that new style that they're playing. They're getting much better at it, and he looked kind of even look tonight with the under-20s won the All-Ireland for Cork as well. So there's so much talent coming through. Maybe just it's 1 year too soon though for them.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you've said so far. And I do find it fascinating that Cork are very successful, with the under-20s, as you've mentioned. And I think it is teeing up to be a rivalry for the ages between Limerick and Cork. The talent level that Cork have coming through, the likes of Shane Barrett now, he seems to have nailed himself down a starting place in the Cork team. The young lads coming through, Jack O'Connor as well, his goal, in my mind, was the biggest score in the Kilkenny game, apart from obviously Adrian Mullen's goal. But for Cork, Jack O'Connor's goal was the real killer score, and that kind of knocked the stuffing out of Kilkenny. So let's get into the actual game itself. Cork management style, I really like it. I like the team that they have: Kieran Kingston, Donald O'Grady, Dermot O'Sullivan, Ger Cunningham's there as well. It's a really good management team, and the mentality that they've stuffed into this Cork team, the mentality that they've given this Cork team. We'll start off talking about that. This Cork team, do you think that they have the mentality? Do you think that they'll have the belief that they can beat Limerick?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think going back to you look at every kind of Cork team, and there's that air about Cork, and early kind of a confidence going into every single game. They've over 30 All-Irelands won, and that there's this belief in the county that this is going to change now. They talk about Corkness and all this sort of stuff. I think they certainly think they'll be going into this game expecting to really, really put it up to Limerick anyway at the minimum. Because if you look kind of at what Cork have, that no other team really in the country has to the same level, is just the sheer pace of their team. We've talked there about Jack O'Connor, but you're also thinking about the likes of Robbie O'Flynn, Shane Kingston as well, who came on, scored 7 points off the bench. His pace just can't be lived with. And then you've from deep as well, you've got Fitzgibbon, Tim O'Mahony, all these players. They have to be the fastest team in the country at the moment. And they'll probably be looking at the likes of Dermot Burns was in a boot kind of all week there, kind of resting up his ankle after going over on it pretty badly. I reckon they'll be plopping kind of Robbie O'Flynn straight on top of him on that wing, and they'll be causing him running directly at him. So I think there's a few kind of areas like that might be looking at getting Kingston maybe in on top of Barry Nash and all this as well, and just causing that direct running and that kind of pace to cause kind of a problem for Limerick that they won't have faced so far in the championship.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Shane Kingston, because I think his role now, particularly how well he played in the semi-final, Sarah O'Donovan was on the other week there in the last episode, and she was saying that she thoroughly believes that the consensus in Cork is that Shane Kingston shouldn't start the All-Ireland final, because they'd rather have Shane Barrett do the heavy lifting early and then bring in Shane Kingston when the game is a little bit more stretched. And I'm just interested because the key moment is, right, I think we can both agree with this, one of the key moments in the Cork-Kilkenny game was when Shane Kingston pushed right up on Pádraig Walsh. Pádraig Walsh was sweeping around. he was doing what he wanted really, and he was absolutely dominating. And because he wasn't really having to worry about marking anybody, then Cork got brave, pushed Shane Kingston right up onto Pádraig Walsh. Now that changed the game. With Limerick, Declan Hannon kind of does a similar thing. He sweeps up. He's very much like a quarterback for Limerick. He starts a lot of the play for them. Do you think if Shane Kingston was to do the same role on Declan Hannon, that it would definitely change the game in Cork's favour? And if so, do you think Cork should start him in that position, or do you think that they should bring him off the bench when the game has kind of opened up a bit?
Yeah, look, I think they did it in the first game, and Kingston actually got an awful lot of joy off Declan Hannon as well in that position, because Hannon's not going to mark you for the full game. And as well, if you can run directly at him, like that is the one kind of area that Limerick kind of leaves somewhat exposed. They know that they're going to have bodies around the midfield, kind of with the two half forwards, kind of dropping back into that position. But there is that opportunity to run centre half back, because Hannon is going to sit off you a little bit, and there is that space from. So yeah, I do think that they're going to look for somebody. No matter who it is, it's going to be somebody. The person that's going to be picked centre half forward is going to be somebody with a rake of speed on them, and that they're going to be hoping to kind of put Hannon on the back foot. So I do think the Kingston winner is going to start, and I think he's going to be in that position, because then even if you drop kind of, if Kingston does come into the team, you think about who's being kind of dropped onto the bench. It'll probably be Shane Barrett, who's been a great impact off the bench all year as well. He looked more effective off the bench than starting probably the last day. Alan Cadigan will be able to come back in as well. And then even if the likes of Declan Dalton as well coming in too. So there's still more than enough kind of options off the bench. So I do think that they can afford to start Kingston and still have plenty of fresh legs to bring on to try and stretch kind of a Tyrone and Limerick backline.
I agree with you. I think that Kingston needs to start, because when you're talking about bringing him off the bench when the game is in the melting pot, at that point I think the game could be gone. I think Limerick are just so dominant that Cork have to start well. Cork have to build up a lead, just like Tipperary did in the Munster final. They have to hit Limerick hard and hit them early, and then they have to watch out for the backlash then from Limerick as well. Because I know you were talking about Robbie O'Flynn and his pace, and making him cause problems for Diarmaid Byrnes. But then on the other wing, you've Kyle Hayes, and obviously Kyle Hayes scored that goal against Cork in the Munster Semi Final, which was a big score. Then also you have the goal that he got in the Munster final, which he ran from so deep, one of the best goals I've ever seen. And they have to watch out for Kyle Hayes' pace this time and his direct attacking. He's a direct goal threat from wing back. And I know you were talking about Robbie O'Flynn and his pace, putting Diarmaid Byrnes on the back foot on the other wing. But do you think that they should be man-marking Kyle Hayes?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's kind of been a lot of talk about this kind of Hayes kind of for that he needs to be marked from half forward line. But if you kind of look at I know he got the 2 goals kind of already so far in the championship, but you look kind of the last day in the semi-final there against Waterford, he was very much kind of on the back foot and was having to do kind of a lot of defensive work. You saw some of the clearances going in. I do think that Hayes has the ability to maybe go on, if the space is in front of me, is the ability to go on and bury a goal. But I think Cork should be with their forward line. I think they should be letting Limerick try to worry about them instead of having to designate a player to go on. What I think is going to actually happen is, you've seen it a lot, that Conor Catalan's gone to midfield with Luke Meade, and Dara Fitzgibbon's gone out to wing forward. So I think there's a good old chance that Fitzgibbon will be out on Kyle Hayes, and with the speed of the two of them, I think it'll be an alright matchup anyway for Cork.
Yeah, I agree with you, but Fitzgibbon had a poor game against Kilkenny. He got taken off. He got put back on in extra time, but he didn't have the best of games. So is he there for the taking?
Well, look, technically speaking, it should be the other way around, and it should be that Hayes was going to have to worry about Fitzgibbon. Like, it's an interesting one. Like, based off form, Fitzgibbon probably shouldn't be starting this final, but I think he will be based on his kind of on who he is. But like, but I think it's. I think it'll be an interesting one. I actually do think that will be the matchup on the day. I just can't see Fitzgibbon being dropped, kind of considering he's an all-star winner and he's been kind of first named the team sheet for a while. So I do think that's going to be the matchup there, and I think he needs a big kind of game, because he's been poor in the last like 2 or 3 games as well for Cork all year really. So he really needs a big final.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's had a bit of a disappointing year by his standards. He's an outstanding hurler, and yeah, that's the key area for Cork to get right, is around that middle third. This is the the biggest point that we're going to make about if Cork can win this game, because let's be honest here, Limerick win the games in the middle. Cian Lynch, Will O'Donoghue, Darragh O'Donovan, Gerard Hegarty, Tom Morrissey, Kyle Hayes, Diarmaid Byrnes, Declan Hannon. Around that area, they dominate. And particularly against Waterford, Will O'Donoghue, Darragh O'Donovan and Cian Lynch just mopped up everything. Darragh O'Donovan won man of the match. Will O'Donoghue was just bullies everyone. Cork, as well as that, I know you're talking about Conor Cahalane and Luke Meade. Are they a strong enough midfield pairing to go toe-to-toe with Limerick, or do you think Cork should, throw more bodies around the middle? Because, as well as that, who marks Hegarty and who marks Morrissey and who marks Cian Lynch?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one because, like, you look kind of the last day out, like you think about Jamie Barron in midfield for Waterford and Peter Hogan. They're a similar kind of midfield partnership to Luke Meade and to Conor Cahalane's size profile and kind of style of play. And you saw what happened that Will O'Donoghue just kind of bossed that game, and he didn't allow. This is like 3 games in a row now that he's come up against the likes of a Jamie Barron and he's completely overshadowed him, and it's even resulted in Barron having to be moved. So that is a concern for Cork. That I do think that they're going to struggle with O'Donoghue, in particular, his physicality in there. And that is an area that Limerick would probably expect to win. But what you can get out of Luke Meade and out of Conor Cahalane is like huge levels of endeavour and work rate, and that they are going to keep going for the entire game, and that they will get in breaking ball, getting dirty ball as well. But look, the physicality is going to be really, really tough for them as well. Kind of touching on as well, you're making the points there, like Hegarty and Tom Morrissey are going to be coming in now as well. I think Tom Morrissey's the big one at the moment. I think as it stands, if Limerick win the All-Ireland, I think he's the current hurler of the year. I think he's just pretty much unplayable at the moment. And the chances are he's going to be playing on Tim O'Mahony. And Tim O'Mahony's probably in all-star form as well this year. So that battle could be absolutely huge. That's definitely one to watch out for. And then the other side, I think it could be Owen Cadigan. I think Cadigan's going to come in. Talk that Jeremy Miller won't be fully fit. Well, he went off injured. And if he is maybe fit, I still don't think that he's probably the greatest kind of size to be matching up to Hegarty. So he's probably a better fit for Cian Lynch. So I think it'll be Owen Cadigan that'll be taking Hegarty.
And what about Cian Lynch?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one because we've talked about a midfield 2 of Cahalane and Luke Meade as well. But then that leaves Mark Coleman, the centre half back, on Cian Lynch. And the problem is most teams, what they do now is that they play with a 7th defender, and their 6 goes into a sweeper position, and then they drop one midfielder in to pick up Cian Lynch, and they just have someone to match him for the entire game. And that's what Cork did in the first one. They had Jeremy Miller there and did that, and it was very, very effective. But I'm not sure with the way kind of Cork afford to drop one of their forwards again. So that's the extra question: is do they want to do what Waterford did and play with 7 defenders, which they clearly didn't work for Waterford. So look, they have to make a decision there. Do they let Cian Lynch kind of roam free a little bit, or do they get Mark Coleman to track him everywhere, or do they play the 7th defender? I'd be curious what you think of that.
To be honest, I think they're in more danger if they play the 7th defender, because the way Limerick play, they rack up such huge scores. Every time that they play, and a lot of their shots come from deep. Tom Morrissey, Gerard Hegarty, Diarmaid Byrnes, Kyle Hayes, Declan Hannon, they rack off huge scores. And a lot of it is because there's a lot more space around the middle, because they're able to get good quality ball into the forwards. Declan Hannon is the key. That's what I'm saying. He needs to be picked up by Shane Kingston, because Declan Hannon gets his hands on the ball and he plays 60-40, 70-30 balls to the half forwards in favour of Morrissey and Hegarty. And as you've mentioned, particularly Morrissey, with the form that he's in, once he gets his hands on the ball, point. So exactly that. I think Cork they have to be brave this time. They have to really, they stayed within touch of Limerick. Obviously you mentioned the 8 points, but Limerick kind of pulled away at the end. I think Cork, if they really go for it, I think that they could get them they could catch Limerick on the hop a little bit.
Yep, yeah, I do think that's a fair point. And this is probably a bit of a controversial take, but the other kind of issue I think for Cork is it's the kind of the matchup in fullback on Seamus Flanagan. I know Robert Downey's he's kind of been an all-star form as well, but I actually think that Damien Cahalane will be a far better fit for marking Seamus Flanagan at the weekend. And that you kind of look at the games that have happened so far, that in the last day out against Kilkenny, when Billy Ryan was put in on top of Robert Downey, he kind of found it an awful lot more difficult, kind of with kind of diagonal ball coming in front, bouncing out in front for Billy Ryan to get out in front of him, and he was knocking over scores. And then Downey kind of grew into the game hugely when it was a long direct ball being thumped in, kind of, and then you started plucking it from the sky, and that's what he's really good at. But with Flanagan is you're going to have a player coming out and collecting ball and hitting it straight over the shoulder as well. And I'm just not fully certain if that matchup fully suits Cork. And I think that Damien Cahalane might be a better kind of a better foil for Seamus Flanagan. Although with Downey's form, I can't see him being dropped for the final though.
I completely agree with you that Cahalane's a better matchup for Seamus Flanagan. But does that mean that you would take Robert Downey out of the team, or would you take Niall O'Leary or Sean O'Donoghue out?
No, yeah, I would take Downey out of the team. I think Niall O'Leary on Peter Casey's good fit, and I think Sean O'Donoghue on Galan's good fit. So I would go with them two, and then I'd go Damien Cahalane and Flanagan. But I can't see it happening, probably considered based off kind of how Downey's been playing, I suppose. But that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because Billy Ryan, you're right. He was a constant headache for Cork in the first half when they were hitting that diagonal ball. And then they switched it up, put TJ and Walter in around the square, and Downey was plucking the ball out of the sky. And TJ kind of had an off day as well, even though Downey was fantastic. But they did kind of play it into his hands a little bit with the type of ball that they were hitting in. Once they hit that quick ball in, Cahalane is a better fit for it. Up the other end, which is the best way do you think that Cork can hurt Limerick?
Look, I think it just has to be kind of direct ball into Jack O'Connor and the likes, and him and Horgan probably going to be in a two-man full forward line together, and they just have to hope that they get an awful lot of joy and they win their matchups in there. But look, let's kind of face it, they're probably in a two-man full forward line. They're probably going to be up against Sean Finn and Dan Morrissey, which is probably as strong as it gets. Like, you're not going to come up against any better than that. So, like, that's the issue. They're going to have to win that kind of 50-50, and they're going to have to hope that Jack O'Connor is able to turn Sean Finn a few times and get in and goal, like, probably 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that if Cork can somehow get Dan Morrissey as well playing a game on pace rather than, what he's used to, the high ball in. If he marks Patrick Horgan, I think he'll do a good job on Patrick Horgan. As good as Patrick Horgan is right now, the form he's in the form of his life, in my opinion. Dan Morrissey is the perfect match for him. But if they could somehow get a Jack O'Connor on him or an Alan Cadigan on him, someone who's going to, like Patrick Horgan played out centre forward one game, and I'm wondering, like, could that be an option for Cork? Like, to get a Jack O'Connor or an Alan Cadigan or someone with pure pace, like a Shane Kingston, in on Morrissey, and then we'll hit fast diagonal ball in, and then we'll try and put him in a zone where he'd be uncomfortable, much like Clare did to Tip Barreri and to Paddy Maher when they got Ian Galvin on him.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. I do think at the moment that Dan Morris is probably the best fullback in the country. I think that's probably what's going to happen, is that he's going to pick up Horgan, and that's going to be the matchup there. And look, I think they'll be very, very happy if that's the matchup. I think you're right with that. So, yeah, look, I get completely kind of where you're going with it. I do think that'll be Horgan on that Morrissey will pick up Horgan, Finn will pick up Jack O'Connor, and then I think that they'll try to get Barry Nash on Shane Kingston, because I think that Shane Kingston is going to be the one that's going to start there. That just kind of leaves Harnedy, wherever he'll play, they won't be too concerned about kind of moving around their half back line to pick him up, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Shane Kingston should start. Centre forward, and I think that they should put Seamus Harnedy in that full forward, and then get Horgan in the corner and hit the diagonal ball into Patrick Horgan. And then ask the question of Limerick, do they want to leave Barry Nash on Patrick Horgan, or do they want to move Declan Hannon around, or do they want to put Dan Morrissey out in the corner on Patrick Horgan and leave, Barry Nash or someone like that on the edge of the square with Seamus Harnedy? I think just make them think. Don't play it straight into their hands. Don't play 14 on 3 and 13 on 4. As in, don't play the traditional matchups. Make Limerick think. Make their heads ache a bit. Don't make it easy for them. Make them think about moving Declan Hannon around, Kyle Hayes around. Don't just let them do what they want to do.
Yep, completely. And I think another thing important to touch on, I suppose, is that the decision to overturn the red card for Peter Casey, and I think that could be absolutely huge. Just kind of looking at kind of the options, like Graham Mulcahy wasn't playing at the same level this year. Kind of he's not hitting the same heights, and then kind of after that, it would be either Pat Ryan or Cathal O'Neill, who kind of neither have really been kind of ever been a kind of starter for Limerick as well in championship. So yeah, look, I think that was a huge thing that Peter Casey got that overturned as well. And I think that could be potentially decisive in this kind of contest because like he's the capacity to knock over 4 or 5 points from play.
I agree. So if you can recap it, what do Cork have to do to win the game, and then what do Limerick have to do to win the game?
Okay, well, I suppose I'll start out with Limerick, and I think Limerick just need to bring the same energy levels and same performance levels that they brought to every other game this season, and then I think they'll win. I think that they're too strong around the midfield. I think their half forward line is just playing at a different level this year. I think they create way too many chances to not win this game, I suppose. So like once the ball going into Flanagan and Gallan is right in there and there's a bit of space in front of them, it's impossible to stop. And I just don't see any weaknesses in this Limerick team at the moment. So if they bring the right kind of effort levels and that their mentality is right in the day, I do think that'll be enough for them to win. And then for Cork, I suppose, look, they're going to need to kind of catch Limerick, I think, on a little bit of an off day, and they're going to have to just bring something that we haven't seen from any team yet against Limerick, and that's just going to have to be raw pace, I suppose, and that they're going to have to score goals. We've seen this now that they've wanted to, they've looked to kind of create goal opportunities every time. They're not turning down goal chances, and look, let's face it, probably about 3 of them are going to have to win at the weekend. I think for them to win, it's going to have to be that the likes of Jack O'Connor, Shane Kingston, and maybe Shane Barrett and Alan Callaghan off the bench are going in and getting goals. And look, yeah, if they can do that, and then if the likes of Tim O'Mahony can win his matchup with Tom Morrissey, and if Owen Callaghan, if he wins his matchup against Garrett Hegarty, then they've got a chance. But yeah, I do think that ultimately I'm going to go with Limerick by 5 or 6 in the end.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said. I think if Limerick turn up, they win because they're just better than everybody in the country right now. And I don't mean to say that to completely write off Cork. Limerick could panic. Limerick could feel the pressure of a potential back-to-back All-Ireland, and they could panic a little bit. They could have an off day. But I think if Limerick play like they played in the second half of the Munster Final against Tipperary, nobody is beating them. Nobody in the country is beating Limerick if they play like that. So Cork have to hope that Limerick get a bit of nerves, then they have to really go for it. And I mean, I agree with everything you said. Callaghan, and if it's Millerick, then him as well. But Callaghan and O'Mahony, they have to win their battles. Coleman has to play an outstanding game for Cork again. If Robert Downey is going to start, which I think he will, he has to not let Seamus Flanagan do what Billy Ryan did. He can't let Flanagan get out and tap over nice points over the shoulder. He has to get right in his face and not let him do that. As well as that, they need a massive game out of Patrick Horgan, and Seamus Hannity really needs to step up. And then they need to isolate Jack O'Connor and Sean Finn with space as well for Jack O'Connor to really use that pace. And then they need to, in my opinion, put Shane Kingston right up on top of Declan Hannon from the start. And do not let Declan Hannon play that 60-40 ball to Tom Morrissey and Garrett Hegarty. With all that being said, I still think Limerick are going to win. And I'm going to give them the win pretty much by exactly what you give them, somewhere between the realm of 4 and 8 points. I think Cork, I love where they're going. I love their progression, particularly like the young players that they're bringing through. But let's not forget that they were a brilliant Patrick Collins save away from going out of the championship against Clare. So the fact that they're in the All-Ireland final is a blessing for them. They got really lucky to get here, because they could have gone out. They could have gone out to Clare, as I said. Their mentality is very strong. We saw that against Kilkenny, particularly when the game was taken to extra time, the way that they reset and refocused. But I just think this Limerick team are one of the best teams that the game has ever seen. And I think back-to-back All-Irelands will put their legacy in stone.
Yeah, look, ultimately, I think that's kind of the key point here is that from watching now in the past, kind of like even if you look kind of in the past decade, like I have not seen kind of a team in the modern era kind of that's in any way kind of as dominant as Limerick are right now, and it's just they've kind of brought kind of different levels. There's not a single kind of weakness in that starting 15. There's nowhere to really that you can get at them, and it's just a ridiculously solid starting 15. Maybe the bench is not quite as good as Cork's, but I think that like overall that Limerick starting 15 is going to be out there until about the 60 odd minute when the subs will finally come on then. And yeah, look, I don't see any faults in them. They've got an expert management team as well that are going to keep them very, very motivated. And I just look, it would take something special, I think, for Cork to win it. But that's like the point I want to make particularly is you look at the under-20 title from technically last year that they just won, the team with Shane Barrett and Alan Connolly. And then you look kind of at the team that won there tonight with the under-20s with the likes of Pádraig Power and Jack Catalan that absolutely shone tonight. And all these are coming through in the conveyor belt in the next 2 or 3 years. And they'll be looking in that time period to kind of break into that starting team. So I think Cork are going to a really, really good place right now. And yeah, look, I think this could be the start of a really, really good rivalry between Limerick and Cork, yeah.
Yeah, well, all I can say is hopefully, because I think a rivalry between these two counties would be a joy to watch. So that's our prediction. We predicted Limerick are going to win the All-Ireland in hurling for 2021 by a few points against Cork. So, Luke, thanks for coming on.
No worries. Good talking to you.
All right. Can't wait for this game, guys. Hope you enjoyed the podcast and take care.